So good morning, Andrea. It's such a lovely pleasure to have you join me. And I know as a mompreneur that sometimes these types of conversations that get booked ahead of time can also be impacted by what's happening with our family.
Yeah.
And we were just on the call a moment ago, and you mentioned that you have one of your kids is in school today and one's homesick. So we'll see if we get someone else joining us today.
That's right. Thanks, Yvonne. Nice to chat with you today as well.
Yes, it's lovely. We keep bumping into each other at various women's events, and yes, we'll get that coffee or lunch meeting booked for sure.
Sounds good.
For this interview, though, I was grateful that you had a chance to accept this interview because I believe that you have some very distinctive insights to share. And for those of you who don't know Andrea, Andrea is the founder of Schoolworks. She also has a intriguing background prior to starting this particular business. Andrea won the Canadian Mompreneur of the tongue-tied here. Canadian Mompreneur of the Year Award for 2015, recognizing what a tremendous business you've grown as well as balancing your family and work-life balance. You do have a Bachelor of Commerce in marketing, I understand, and you were working in that field as a marketing manager for many years prior to starting your family. So I would be interested in hearing a little bit about what you're up to now in Schoolworks, and then let's get into this topic of confidence.
Oh, sounds good. Okay. So Schoolworks actually for me has grown alongside with my family. So when I won the award in 2015, that was my second year in business. I'd say pretty much my first full year of kind of giving it a really good go. The way that Schoolworks it runs now, again, like you mentioned, I am a full-time stay-at-home mom. I chose to leave my marketing career after I had my second child, and I have 3 now. Right. And so I really have built this company as my family has grown, and I still have my youngest who is actually just kindergarten, and so he's only still half days at school. So, I still work around those kind of pockets of time to grow my company. But I have been very good at growing my company, and I like to call it slow growth.
Yes. And for those who don't know what Schoolworks is all about, I loved this idea when I heard about it. As you know, my son Alex does artwork, and actually, this is not a Schoolworks book. I'll put that down. However, I did have a very hard time when I was looking at what beautiful artwork he was doing, figuring out how am I going to capture all of this. So your Schoolworks idea, how did that get started again?
So I was always one of those moms who couldn't throw any of my children's crafts away, and I wanted to kind of keep everything, but as you all know, you can't keep everything. So one day my daughter brought home a Rice Krispie tree, and she had taken the time to glue on like 100 Rice Krispies for the leaves of the tree. And I thought, how was I going to save that one? And I started taking pictures of all her artwork, and that actually didn't transpire to Schoolworks for quite a number of years. And I remember making a book out of all her pictures, and somebody had said, hey, listen, my wife's got a big bin, a tub of crafts in our garage, and can you take this these bins and make something? And so then I was like, oh, this might be something that other people need, and it might be a solution for other moms out there that want to preserve their their children's treasures through their childhood. And I'm a big believer now that I've been doing it for 4.5 years that really a child's story is written, and their creativity is in their drawings and their writing pieces, and it's who they were. It starts to show who they are and who they're becoming. It's really interesting.
So just thinking about that for a moment, when it comes to helping young girls in particular elevate their confidence, certainly I think that there is still a lot of, comments out there for young girls about, how pretty they are and how nice they look, which is great. However, ultimately, if we want to build strong, capable, confident girls, I would think that showcasing their accomplishments in the way through the Schoolworks programs would have a really big impression.
It does. And I think, for girls and boys, but if, speaking, I have a daughter, my oldest is my daughter, and, to be able to pick up her book and look at what she did, let's say in grade 3 versus what she's doing now in grade 6, yeah. There's a big growth potential there for her of, her writing style, her art, mm-hmm. all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a silent confidence builder for them, versus being tucked away in a bin that they're never going to see their writing again, or, you may pull it out once in a blue moon. But, so I do see what you mean. It is something that they can, take with them. And, I see lots of kids too that first open their book and they're just so proud of being published. That's their greatest thing. And I think with art is especially something that is so ambiguous to each person. So what I find is, art to me is different to everybody. And so to let them know that their art may not look like everybody else's, but it's super special because they did it, is definitely a confidence booster for them.
Yeah. And even for yourself as a mom, developing this idea and seeing it flourish and grow into a huge success, I would imagine that that's also been quite a confidence booster for you too.
Absolutely. I think entrepreneurialism, balancing with mom life, is a very it's a very interesting path or journey, and it takes some time to really kind of, I think for me anyway, it took some time to really kind of I don't like using the word balance because I don't believe there is balance. I believe it is about being flexible. And so it made me become a more flexible person in how to handle things thrown at me. Like I mentioned, and you mentioned today, I had a very full work day today, and I have one homesick and one who I did send to school who is semi-sick. So I probably will get the call today. You have to be able to kind of move things around, juggle, and just make it work.
Yeah. So when it comes to the topic of confidence, excuse me, as you know, my upcoming book is all around sharing language that is powerful language that women either can add to their current vocabulary to help them be more confident in conversations, to ask for what they want in a win-win reciprocity manner and get what they're asking for, but confidently own what it is that they want to articulate and voice. How would you as an entrepreneur say that shifted your confidence?
Sorry, so what concepts shifted my confidence as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, like if there's concepts or if there's maybe examples of situations where you've had to step up and ask for what you want, use your language more powerfully, in the context of being an entrepreneur, perhaps.
Okay. I feel like I am sort of one who has always had confidence. I've always, from day one, asked for what I want, because if you don't ask, you'll never know. So for me, it was always something that it actually bothered me if something I didn't feel comfortable to go ask. If I wasn't going to go on that pathway, then I wouldn't know what the outcome would have been. Mm-hmm. And that bothered me more than actually the fear of kind of going, to ask something. So I always focused on that, like it was better to go and approach and ask for something than to not do that.
Yeah. And I can't remember whether it was Tony Robbins or It was one of the other, the big and well-known motivational speakers talked about, if you don't ask, then you'll stay exactly where you are. But if you do ask, you have at least a 50% chance of getting a yes.
Yeah. And somebody once told me, and actually this is I think one point that I really love to share with a lot of women is that someone in my close circle shared with me early on in my business development was that a no doesn't necessarily mean no. It just means not yet. And when I focus on that particular comment, it always drives me to make the ask instead of sitting and not asking something that I need. And I've seen it very clearly in my business. I had very early on in Schoolworks, approached one of the largest daycares across Canada to implement Schoolworks within their company. And it was a no. Mm-hmm. And that could have totally sent me the other way. And when this lady said, it just means not yet. So then I took my business and I built it, and I built a stronger foundation over the year. And I came back and I asked the next year, and the answer was yes. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer that the universe wants to support us. I mean, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. Mm-hmm. And I think we either get a no or a not yet. We either get a yes or a not yet, but we very rarely get a no once we've taken action to demonstrate we really do want this. And I think there's something in my head about in one of the speakers, it might have been Jack Canfield with the Principles for Success, 21 Principles for Success. Some will, some won't, but basically move on to the next person and don't worry about it. And certainly for me, that tends to be a motto for me too.
It's very true, because I remember going to a Make Your Mark session here in Calgary, and I remember he gives out these little tiny cards that have the mantras on them. And the one that I happened to pull that year, which was a couple years ago, was the universe works for you, remember that the universe is working for you, not against you. And I often come to that one again, because it's like, if it wasn't meant to be, it's just in that particular time that it wasn't meant to be, and there's a reason. And I think with my business and really feeling and growing it slowly, I've seen that things wouldn't have worked back, a couple of years ago until certain things have come into play. So yeah, I think it all works. I'm a big believer in that universe telling you something as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in the work that I do, coaching women entrepreneurs, which is my passion, particularly those that are mission inspired, that I see it coming through again and again, where if they had landed that big fish at that moment in time, it would have really thrown their business into complete chaos, because they didn't have the underlying systems and structures to be able to provide great customer service and deliver with their operations elements and really do a great job. So they got great referrals coming out of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So is there one or two words perhaps that you've seen, heard other entrepreneurs? I think that you were also active in the e-preneurs group.
The mompreneurs group across Canada. Yep.
A regional leader.
I'm not leading out here, but I'm very supportive of all women groups. I've been part of the e-moms network here in Calgary, and I'm just supportive of all moms who, want to stay home with their children, but have so much to offer and want to start their own business or contribute to their family. I'm a big supporter of anybody in that kind of place in their life.
So if there was maybe one or two words that you've seen, experienced, heard that help to elevate women's confidence, so that there's maybe more mums out there thinking about starting their own business, what are some of the words that perhaps you've seen that really help them to step up, to be more confident? One
that, and again, it's not just specific words for me, but I do kind of have a couple mantras that really, if something's coming up for me that I may be feeling a little bit nervous about, or I always go to this one mantra that is, you were born to do this. And I truly believe that we know who is inside of us, and the spirit is in there. And so you have to just know that you are here for that purpose, and just believe in yourself.
Yeah. I actually had a coffee meeting with a fellow Reiki practitioner that was just yesterday, and she was talking about the connection to her soul council. Not something I've dived into before. I certainly believe, though, that we do pick our parents, and that we pick the parents that are ultimately going to teach us the things we need to learn in order to do our life's work. Sometimes it just takes a while to get that going. So not necessarily only about words. I mean, the book has lots of individual words in it, but it does have word concepts as well. So things like appreciative inquiry. So instead of, if you're going into a sales meeting as an entrepreneur, instead of starting off asking the potential client, what's your biggest challenge, and then trying to craft your solution around what they say, which tends to drain the energy right out of people talking about challenges and problems. I start with, what's working really well and how could it be even better? And it's just a whole different energy to the conversation. So there are concepts like that included. If there's something in particular, a word or words that you've seen that deflates women's confidence, I'd like to try to capture some of those things too.
I think, that's a tough one. For me, for deflating confidence earlier on for me was maybe because social media is such a sort of a big part of growing your business, I believe, as an entrepreneur at home. But it also has a falsity to it too. And so sometimes you see people in your network that you're like, you believe that they are doing such amazing, big, successful things. And sometimes it can make you feel, am I doing the right things? You question yourself as to, am I doing the right things? And I think, sometimes with that social media, it gets you into trouble or into negative headspace that, I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. But you have to sort of come back to your plans and what you were meant to do. And once you center yourself around what it is that you are successful at, I think that just really works best for me. When I focus a little bit too much on what I'm seeing other people in the social, world doing, it seems to sometimes say, maybe I should be doing this and maybe I should be doing that. And it's a bit distracting. So I guess, you talk about a word, being distracted by some of those things in the social world can have an impact, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think what I'm hearing is perhaps the comparison.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And, I'm naturally a very competitive person. So, that sometimes that fiery competitiveness, when I see, okay, so-and-so is doing this, then I've got to go and do this. And and that's me as my, who I am. So sometimes I have to rein that in a little bit.
I'm thinking as you're talking to Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic.
Oh, haven't read it.
Yeah, she basically talks about how ideas come through synchronicity, intuition. They pop into your head and they'll only stay with you for a certain period of time, and if you don't act on them, they sort of waft off to somebody else, and then someone else gets an opportunity to birth that idea.
That's right. Yeah.
So there are certainly going to be words and word concepts in the book. Anything in particular that you wanted to share? I know that there's a lot of other women entrepreneurs who are going to be watching these videos. Anything particular to confidence and entrepreneurship that we didn't talk about that you'd like to add?
I think early on when you set out on the journey, it's really great to be very clear on what I'm going to say, start with what success looks like for you. because I found out that for me, I didn't start this business with that idea. And it took me probably about a good 2 or 3 years to really say, what does success mean to me? And then drive my business around that. First and foremost for me, my values was keeping my family very, I found that because I was a stay-at-home mom, the minute that, the business became too focused, or me into my business, then all chaos kind of broke out around me. So, and I couldn't figure out how to build this business until I realized that it was, it sort of had to kind of build around my family, not the business with my family kind of coming in from around. It was more, here's my family, this is what we value. Now, how do I build this business? I found that doing that at the very, I would suggest doing that at the very onset, and not lose focus of that, because it's very easy. I could go 12 hours to 15 hours a day if I wanted to. That would put my business in a very different place, but that's not what I value and what my family values. And so I think it's very important for women that decide to move along this entrepreneurial journey to distinguish that first and foremost.
Yeah.
I think it will help from a lot of there's clearly a lot of bumps but along the way, but I think knowing what success means to them from the onset, and then building around their core values at the very beginning is a great place to start.
Yeah, and I love that you shared that. If I look at my Flourish system, that's basically where I start, is the values. What are your values and what are you bringing as an entrepreneur? And then how do you align those values with your own business ideas so that you're always in alignment? And I just had a conversation this week with a new client about success. How are you going to measure success? And it's different for each person. For some, it is purely a revenue target. For others, it's the impact, the measurable impact. And as they work with more and more social entrepreneurs, how can you showcase, even on your website, the impact that your business is having, not just for a profitability, but the social impact that it's having on the back end. Kind of like Tom's shoes. You buy one pair of shoes, you sell one pair of shoes, and it goes to a child in third world country. So I'm so glad that you were able to share. I really appreciate your insights. Very valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
I would like to ask if there are some people that want to learn more about Schoolworks or want to connect with you. Is there anything in particular that you have that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Sure. So on our website, you can go to schoolworks.ca, and that's WORX.ca. And just on our homepage, we have, a $10 off coupon code there that people can grab if they'd like to make a book or try out our service. Mm-hmm. One thing about our service is we drop the box directly at your doorstep from Canada Post, and all you need to do is attach the prepaid mailing label, put the art in the box, and send it off. So it's a very kind of one-stop, easy solution to preserve your children's treasures. And we do it across Canada. And I'd love to, if you have any questions, just reach out. I'd love to answer them to anybody.
That's lovely. What a generous gift. Thank you so much. And as I said, I know for, with Alex and his, this book was created before you and I reconnected. However, the impact that is being made with his artwork, he's raising money for Operation Smile, and he was just able to send money to pay for a 4th surgery for a child with a cleft palate.
Oh, that's just wonderful.
Yeah. So,
I believe that, it's not just about, like you just had mentioned, about the revenue. And that's why, I have a big piece of my company as well that is, we call it the Legacy Program. And we just did a legacy book for a little girl who got her angel wings a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And I believe that these children that are, terminally ill or maybe have left this world also deserve to have their creativity in this book. And so it's a big part of the company as well, and the reason why because now after 4.5 years of doing this, I really believe in what I see is who they were, and it shouldn't be forgotten or left in a bin. And so I love that part about it. And that wasn't really at the onset of the company. It wasn't so much, that idea wasn't really as strong as it is now. Now, after 4 years, I'm like, wow, like it's amazing to see, how many families are so appreciative of, and I think one of the things you see is the mom guilt that we have of keeping it in a box, but they always have the intention to want to do something with it. And having this, this service through Schoolworks, they're now able to do that. It's so nice to be able to offer that to people.
Yeah. Well, I know for myself, I mean, I'm super proud whenever, someone says, well, tell me about his artwork, and I can actually, showcase it. And had one lady that I met recently, and she was in tears. I mean, I'm getting a lump in my throat as you're talking about your legacy project. And I think she ordered 5 more and gave them out as Christmas gifts, I believe, to some of her staff or family. So yeah,
that's so wonderful.
It is. So all of these conversations are really insightful, great learnings. And with your permission, I'm just at the point where I have a couple more comments that I can insert into the book. So with your permission, I'd like to showcase and air this video
for sure
as part of the launch, and maybe include a quote or two from what you've shared.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Yvonne. I appreciate that. That's really nice.
Thank you so much. And we'll connect afterwards, and we'll get that coffee date booked.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, have a good day. Look after you too.
You too. I'll put the mask on now so that I don't get sick.
Okay, take care, Andrea.
Bye, Yvonne.
Bye for now.